Nothing changes instantaneously. In a gradually heating bathtub, you'd be boiled to death before you knew it. Our Father, who art in heaven. Seriously? What the actual fuck?
Gilead doesn't care about children. Gilead cares about power.
Why does healing have to be the only goal? Why can't we be as furious as we feel?
For whatever man sows, so shall he reap.
Welcome to Above the Garage.
Hi, friends. Before we get started, I just wanted to announce we have a lot of interviews in the pipeline that we're super excited for. Next week on Wednesday, our interview with Genevieve Angelson, aka Mrs. Wheeler, will come out. And then on Friday, our 100th episode interview with Bruce Miller will come out. And we really appreciate both of them spending so much time with us. We're super excited to share it with you guys. We've got such an exciting episode for you today as Leslie Kavanagh, costume designer for The Handmaid's Tale Season 5, among a ton of other popular movies and shows, has come to chat with us. Welcome, Leslie.
Thank you.
You look beautiful. I cut my picture off above my shirt because you're a costume designer and I don't want you to judge me.
Oh my God, that's weird.
I didn't really. It just happened that way. Did you make your shirt you're wearing?
I made it by going to the mall and procuring it.
That's how I make things. That's my favorite way to make things.
Obviously, I'm wearing a black blouse, and Lizzie really liked it, and we bought the white version for her.
I was going to say, it reminds me of her dress.
We bought the white version of her for something else because although Lizzie and I are very different in so many ways, we have very similar body attributes. Like we both have soft shoulders. So I have to like give a bit of, structure to myself.
Do I have soft shoulders? I don't know what that means.
No, you actually don't look like you do. So, so they're just more rounded. They're not.
My posture rounds them. So it makes
now
up
I'm
for
like
it.
trying to put my posture up. I'm like, what's my shoulders?
So it's, and then when you're whatever. So we did try it, but it didn't work for what we purchased that for. We didn't, we didn't end up using the blouse for that. So, but the black one's mine.
I love it. It's beautiful.
Thank you so very much. Thank you.
We are really excited to have you because your piece of the puzzle is like so important and I understand it so little. I don't know how you can just think and draw a costume. I don't have that skill.
Your sister's also a costume designer, isn't she?
My sister was, yes, which is how I sort of segued into this wonderful, wild world. My sister, Alex Kavanagh, she is a well-known costume designer here in Toronto. She stepped away. She had children. And so she stepped away at a certain point. She has 2 girls. So she's been raising them, being a little bit more on hands and present when they got to a certain age where they felt that they need their mom around a bit more full time. So she could come back. You never know. She was really great. My mentor, my teacher, my homie, like she's I'm where I am. I really give a lot of credit to her. I think I am where I am because of her. Obviously, we are sisters, but don't be fooled by that. She did not hire me in the beginning. And
how rude.
And told me I had to go and get experience and pave my own path a little bit before coming back to her, which I thought was really mean. So I used the best weapon I told my mother, and I was like, you need to talk to her. So
look who's standing now, though. You won.
But she's very well known in the costume community here. She still is very involved in the costume community on a periphery level, and she has definitely mentored a lot of people here and given a lot of her time to people and the costume industry here. So she's, I really couldn't have had a better mentor, leader, teacher, friend.
She gave you her Twitter too.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, you guys, Twitter, that's a whole other world. Holy smokes.
It really is.
I'm not really that great with social media, and I have an Instagram, but that's about it. That's all I can manage. Not very well. I'm behind on my Handmaid's posts, actually, as I'm doing this podcast. Brad Whitford loves Twitter.
Yeah,
he does.
I used to joke with him actually and be like, he was, if I was trying to get a hold of him, I was like, Brad, do I have to like shout you out on Twitter?
Yes.
Yeah.
So some people are very savvy with it. I think everyone finds whatever their social media forum is.
Yeah.
I found it a bit cray.
Brad is our favorite part of Twitter. So
yeah,
he is.
He
He was actually one of the people that was responding. I was like, yay.
See, you got in touch with him faster.
Yeah.
I read your father was in the military. So I'm guessing, I'm not trying to be sexist here, but I'm assuming he wasn't sewing in his spare time. Did your mom have a love for making clothes, or was it just you guys?
It's funny, my mom's a physiotherapist by trade.
Yeah.
And no, my sister at a young age started to show interest in it. And I'd say that's sort of how and where it started. I did not have the same interests as her at that age. I had other aspirations and dreams, and I was really into sports and thought I was, just going to be like some sort of probably Olympic athlete. When you're like 5 to 10 years old, you're going to be like everything.
Yeah.
And I ended up going, because I had such a sporting background and everything else. I originally had gone to school in the hopes of becoming a sports broadcaster.
That's awesome.
It was cool. It was at a time when there weren't very many female sports broadcasters there. It wasn't as, it wasn't the norm. It's certainly changed now, which is awesome, but it wasn't really then. And it sort of lost its luster for like, if you're never really going to get a kick at the can, what else can I do here? And so I ended up taking, in that time, I took a couple of local theater classes to get a little more comfortable speaking in front of people, and getting a little more natural. And it was through that I sort of got into this community of people that were taking theater for all different reasons, and sort of really enjoyed it. So then took another course. And my sister had gone to Dalhousie University in Nova Scotia here in Canada for costume studies. And that's where she studied and went to school and had a really fruitful career. And I decided I would go back to school and I would reformat my education towards theater. And I ended up going to theater school. And
that's awesome.
I didn't know, when you're talking about costumes, like I truly didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand it. I basically, when I learned how to sew a button, I thought it was like the world's biggest skill set that was ever learned.
I still can't do that.
Why do they fall out when I sew them? I sew them like a billion times. I tie it really well. And 3 weeks later it falls out. And I'm like, what is wrong with me?
It's like, I thought I just had conquered Everest, really.
Yeah, you did.
I was at university at theater school, and I called my sister Collect because I was a student, and and she luckily accepted the charges. And I was just like so proud, like, oh my gosh, I just had to sew like 50 buttons on these costumes, and I did it. And my sister's like, she's completely like, she can sew anything with her eyes shut, and she's just like, so, but always so encouraged, it's like, that is amazing, and this is great, and so it just sort of started from there. And I went to theater school on the East Coast of Canada, and then I ended up coming back to Ontario and to Toronto, and started just working in film in between, like, make some money while you're here being a poor student. And that was just how it all started for me. And I sort of just fell into the costuming community that way. And I was a set person. I was always on set. I was always, writing the action and loving it. And my segue into becoming a designer is a little bit funny because I was offered a movie with this director that I have a big horror background, and it was part of the Saw franchise. And
you worked on a lot of those, right? Saw movies?
I did.
But not Spiral, is that right?
No, I was contacted for Spiral, and unfortunately I was engaged on another project and couldn't do it. And because Darren Bousman is the director friend that I've, been with for a long time, and
that's awesome.
We've done a lot of his his shows and everything. And he called, and he asked, my sister was his main costume designer, but I always worked with her on those movies, and so he knew us both. And he just always used to be like, it's the Kavanagh sisters, the Kavanagh sisters. So
you're like the Williams sisters of the costume world. I like it.
I'll take that because I'm a big tennis fan. So he had this movie called My Sister. She wasn't able to do it because she was already on a project. I said, okay, well, can you just send Leslie? And I was just like, I'm not set for you. I'm not going to go design. What the heck's wrong with you? What are you smoking there? And but it was a horror movie, which, it's in my wheelhouse for sure. And through much sort of back and forth between my sister and Darren deciding that I was going to do this and how it was going to happen.
Yeah. I love that. The confidence. I love that.
Well, it wasn't even shooting in Toronto. I had to go away for it. I was like, what? Are you guys crazy? I'm not going somewhere I don't know anybody. And then I have to design something. I was like, are you crazy? No way. Anyways, long story longer, it ended up happening. And I went, and it was a really fun experience. And, it was good. And that sort of started spiraling me off into the design world.
That's amazing. That's really cool that they were that confident.
During Saw 4, my sister was pregnant, and with her second child, I became very, very involved. So I did get to learn a lot of that side of things. Once the costumes have sort of been established and we worked through them, then all the actual physicality of all the traps and the actual gags that we do on set really became my world anyways. So I was just very involved in the fittings and in what was going to happen on that side, more so than I had been on any of the other movies, in the event that she went into labor, which she did. She actually went in on the night. We were doing on software, we were doing this, we used to call it the pickup sticks track, like trap. That's what we called it. It was these two people were speared together, like their backs were together and they had these spears going through them. And you had to be careful which one you pulled out, otherwise one person might bleed to death. You know, it was like this whole
Right.
It was very intricate on how we had to like attach everything under the costumes to make it look, you know, like they were going through, and then how to get one person start bleeding but not getting the other person. It was really elaborate.
That's when she went into labor.
Yeah, very choreographed type thing. And so I said, if you're going to go into labor, the only time you're going to labor is that day, because it's going to be the biggest, hardest day. And sure enough, it was that day. So yeah, so then she had her baby. She had my second niece, and she didn't come back. So then I just sort of stepped in and sort of took over for that.
Oh, that's natural. Yeah. So to Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
Did you have to do the interview on Zoom?
I did. Yep, I sure did.
And what does the interview entail? Do you have to show your work, or do you just speak to them about your, like, I don't know, vision? Or
so to be honest, this one was a bit of a layered process. I happened to be on another show when they called. And
was that Clarice?
No, I'd finished Clarice, and I'd gone on to, I was actually finishing up a story called, a little show called One of Us is Lying.
Oh yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah.
It had filmed mostly in New Zealand, and unfortunately our little friend COVID, they had a massive outbreak in the island. The country was being shut down, and they had to make a very quick decision. They hadn't quite finished the show, and they had to make a very quick decision. Do we get everything out? And, you know, they weren't sure how long their lockdown was going to last. And so they came to Toronto just to finish it up. And they asked if I would step in to just sort of finish that. And I just want to say, like, I don't feel like, I don't really feel like I designed anything on that. I just really helped facilitate for the costume designer New Zealand, her vision to make sure that got across the way she was hoping and wanted. She had done such a beautiful job. There was such minimal stuff for me to do. I don't like to say that I designed anything on that show. I really just helped facilitate making sure everything went smoothly, and that the last few fittings went well on behalf of her, because she unfortunately couldn't be here to do it. And I was working on that. And the first meeting was just meeting a couple of the producers. I think probably a meet and greet, just to tell me a bit about the show. And me to see if they thought I fit their world. And then I had another interview where I put together a visual book for them based on my ideas, thoughts. Normally as a costume designer, you get sent a script, and you get to read the script. Even if it's for a TV series, they'll send you one script so that you just will base it based on that one episode that they're sharing with you. I had nothing. They just told me about the show. They gave me a couple of little things about very broad strokes, about what the series could entail, not what it would or was going to. They didn't give too much away, and they just wanted to see what I would do with it. I guess luckily enough, I hit the mark, and they went with me. And then the final interview was with Elizabeth Moss. It was really awesome, actually. I was told I would get. Lizzie's a really busy person in life. She acts, obviously, she now directs, but she also produces. She is a real boss babe, I will tell you. That lady, it's pretty phenomenal what she is got on her plate at any given time. And I'm in a lot of awe and admiration of her for how she handles it all. She's a very classy lady. And she was working on a show, and I was told, listen, we have about a 10 to 15 minute window that you can have to speak to her. Wow. I was like, no problem. Like, I got nothing but time, but I'll take, it's like, sure. Like, I didn't bother, Anyways, her and I spoke for over an hour.
Oh, that's awesome. Clearly went well.
And we just really, really clicked right away and really connected. She got to explain to me a little bit of some of her perspective, and then just asked me mine. And she seemed to really enjoy what I had to say. And we just were able to riff off each other about ideas and where it could go. It was a really, really fantastic time and a great conversation.
That's awesome.
I got hired.
Congratulations. So if filming started in February, I have to imagine you started long before that. What month do you start?
I started in November, like very early November, like late October, to go look at the office spaces and get everything going. And then I started at the beginning of November.
And is your job like drawing? Dumb it down for me, please.
Okay, so I'll full disclosure, I'm not the best at drawing. I'm like, it's not my strong suit. However, I can give a lot of good visual references and explanation. I feel, that I'm a very good orator of my ideas. And so I'm able to really convey what it is I'm looking for. So I worked with a sketch artist, my sketch artist, Adriana, and I worked together to do some stuff. I also have a phenomenal sewing team that has worked with me before. And a lot of people that work with me, they just call it the LK. Like, so my nickname's LK. So a lot of people just call it the LK lingo. Like, I just sort of speak in riddles, I suppose. I don't even know what I do. I don't even know what I do. I speak normally, but everyone's like, that's just her way of talking. Okay. So I like, one of my favorite explanations that I always say is like, if this and this had a baby, that's what I want. Like, because it's not quite this, it's not quite that. I sort of give references to that, but I will, take a Sharpie, and if I see something on the internet I like and I print it off, I start, I'll just Sharpie things out and add on to it. Like, just sort of, I'm, embellish. I want more of a sleeve like this, but I want a body of that, like, so it's a lot of sort of cut and paste and sort of formulating ideas. And obviously as a costume designer, I'm a visual storyteller. So I think it's really important to have visual aids for anybody that I'm dealing with, whether it be writers, directors, producers, to convey my message, or even to my team to help them understand what I'm saying. And I think because I have worked my way up from being like a costume assistant to a costume designer, I've done almost every single position within the department. I think it's really benefited me to be able to speak the language of whoever I'm talking to. If I go to the sewing room, I speak that language. If I go into the breakdown room, I speak that language. So it's just really important to be able to convey your ideas in a way that my message is heard and understood. But I'm also, go for it, try it. Let's see what happens. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll just go again. Like, I sort of feel like it's always what I do is very subjective in a lot of ways. So you have to be able to kind of be malleable. And
you sound very collaborative.
I'm extremely collaborative. I believe, although I'm the designer and I have the vision and the whole, the big picture, I love what people have to say. I love in the fitting room talking to cast about what it is. Like, I will go to them and tell them what my pitch is, let me hear what you think. Like, because if they, they might come to me like, oh, that's so different than what I was thinking. I really like this and this, but I was maybe thinking this. What do you think? I'm like, I love it. It's just like, if I don't think something is right, I obviously say that. If I don't feel that's quite what the character is, from my perspective as a costume designer, I have concept meetings and design meetings and in the hallway meetings and the water meetings, you get all these sort of extra bits and bobs when you're talking to the other, producers, directors. I get to pick the brain of the production designer. And, when the directors of photography, if you're on a TV series, you often have two, like they're always alternating. So when you're prepping, you get to prep with that one and talk to them about stuff. So I definitely have that insight. So when the cast come to me, I've heard a lot of what everyone else is thinking about that character. And then I can translate it to them in my vision, so for me, I have to meld everything together, as well as keeping what my vision is, what I've sold to these people of what I'm going to do,
Right. Yeah.
But I do think the beauty of costume design and character development, because that's such a big part of what costume designers,
huge
character development is, you do have to be open to, it not just being such a straight road of it's this to this. It's like you can have forks that, if you're all coming back to the main road in the end, it's okay. If there's like little deviations that is going to enhance and make it better, I'm all for it.
Do the women care more about their costumes than the men? Curious. Men's costumes are pretty they look amazing, but they're not as different as women.
Well, to be quite fair, there's only so much you can do with a black suit.
Exactly.
There really is. I mean, we all the men have a couple of different black suits. You probably don't know that on TV, but they do. If they're feeling this way, they can have one. If they're feeling this way, they can have that one. I mean, for Commander Lawrence, for Bradley Whitford, obviously he is a complete build. We built his suits. He wears a beautiful custom in-house 3-piece suit that we did, like really beautiful black wool cashmere, because he was a lot of the wintry stuff. We did have with his scarves, that's, he's a bit more interesting because, his character's always pushing the limit a little bit as well. So he doesn't always wear a black tie. Unfortunately for the characters in Gilead, no, it's not it's not that you can't have a nice suit and make sure they have a nice tie and everything else and really nice white shirts, but there's not a lot. There really isn't.
The suspenders are nice. We like this. We enjoy the suspenders as well.
I mean, I will say this season for me with that was super fun to be able to introduce a few little new elements from the funeral.
That was amazing.
You know, we got to play around. We wanted to make sure that Fred's funeral was of a state funeral feeling, very a lot of pomp and ceremony was, you know, I'm all about drama. And I wanted it to be very dramatic. And I sold when I went in, that was what my pitch was all based on for getting the job, was all, I only knew that there was going to be this funeral. And for me, it just had to be complete showstopper from top to toe kind of thing. And including all the background, everything we were going to see. At the time, the funeral episode was the biggest that they had ever done. Yeah, our finale is now actually in terms of numbers, sheer numbers of people. But the difference being for the funeral, we were in Gilead and everything is already a controlled, you know, again, the wonderful Anne Crabtree helped create these very distinguishable groups of people from the Econos, the wives, the Marthas, you know, the aunts, the handmaids, obviously the commanders. And how was I going to bring all this together in a really
show-stopping manner? It is
beautiful,
amazing,
dramatic way. And so it was really embellishing. All the commanders, we bumped up their ropes to gold. Like, I love gold, so it had to be just over the top for me with that. And you know, we redesigned the ropes to be more vocal, more visual from what Anne had done.
Yeah, you could definitely see them more.
They're much more prominent, which I really like. And all the wives with the creepy veils over their faces as well. Like, how can you make them, like, you know, creepy and cool at the same time? And same with the handmaids. And all of our Kano people, you may or may not have been able to tell, they, you know, we just gave everybody a black armband because it was kind of like, you know, where do these people go? And we sort of, it was all these big discussions, like how would they have that? We you know, we started off really grandiose and was kind of like, well, how are we going to achieve that with the sheer volume of people?
Right.
And so we kind of had to get a little bit more realistic in what was going to be achievable in the time frame, because for us in the costume department, we had pre-fit so many background, because everyone, you know, head to toe in a costume. And so it became what's reality of what we can achieve in this time frame and what's not. So we made sure that everyone had a black armband, which is always just a sign of respect. And then the very visual props we did for everybody else. But even all of the for all the guards and like all the guardians and all the funeral procession, you know, I did a lot of, even on the gentlemen, even on all the commanders, I designed and had made shoulder boards on top of, like, they have gold shoulder boards along with the ropes on their thing. It's just, everything had to just be that much more, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To really represent what a founding Gilead father, whether Fred was ousted or not, they are all doing this for show. They are trying to show the world something, right? So they're like, yeah, we're in it to win it. Let's show them, like, Gilead's good. We got it going on, you know? So it was, so we were really able to, I was given that, you know, beautiful sort of design freedom to make it a little bit more. And then, you know, there was the adding of the high commanders that were sitting on the risers that you could see the Serena turns. Scripturally, it was said that these would be all these high commanders coming from different areas to represent. And how could we represent that visually? And I'd played around with chains of commerce on them. Everyone maybe had different types of chains of commerce, which is a very, you know, sort of medieval-y type thing to, like, the problem was it kind of didn't, to me, I was like, it looks a little too medieval. It's not looking quite, you know. And so they're all wearing stoles, and in the center, it's their family crest. So each family is represented. And so everybody, like, you know, amazing. We have Putnam's there. He's got his, Calhoun is there with his, like, so we have different people. And so they were all, everybody had a family crest we had, you know, made. And
did you come up with the crest? Your department, I assume?
What I came up with was how we would execute them. Elizabeth Williams and the art department, all of her graphics people, they discussed that and was all gone through the approval process of what it would be. They designed that stuff. And then I just played around, again, some small details you don't get to necessarily tell totally, but I did all metallic threads so that they really had more punch. Like I did a bunch of samples of different threading, and the metallic threads really, again, because I was like, gold, I want gold. And so it was just all metallic threads that when you see it in person, they're quite nice, but it doesn't always translate perfectly like that on TV, but they have some punch. And so all those details, making sure everything that way. And obviously for me, what was quite special was introducing the plums. It's a whole new,
Yeah.
a new color in Gilead ever since the original, other than season 2 where the colonies, the colonies were spoken about. We see the colonies,
Yeah.
but this was the first time a new color and
Big reveal.
yeah. And so that was the biggest thing, is making sure that they were just perfect for what they were. I really tried to design them to show that they were of importance, but without giving too much away, because nothing was explained. And it was a question that was asked through that. What is that color? Why is Hannah doing it? And so it was really important to, and again, it was kind of, how do I make them, I didn't want them to be in cloaks, because I'm like, these are women, like these are young ladies in training. And when they were young kids, they also just had the little capelets, right? They had the capes,
right?
And then everyone else. So it's like, what can I do? So I just came up with a sort of a modification on a 1950s swing coat that was very popular at the times. You don't get to see it in the show either, but the collar's removable, because I wasn't sure if I would have to reuse this coat down the road in a bit other situations that maybe I would do. So it's shown like, so it was just, how do you play around in Gilead to have multi-purpose? Because, that's what it's about. And so it was sort of that.
They were beautiful. I love the color. I love everything about their costumes was so beautiful, and I loved it.
Thank you.
Purple's my favorite color, so that helps, but I liked how it swung and everything.
It was really fun. And I have been asked a little bit, and the whole thing, I've been asked a lot about the significance of the color and how do you choose it. And the color was in the script. It came to me. And so when I start asking about what does this mean, it's really to showcase that these are, a different group of people. And my thing for it was like, I don't know if this is what Bruce was thinking when I'm not sure. We never actually had this specific conversation, but for me, I was like, makes sense, because, they're the daughters, they're coming out of the baby pinks and the baby blues. And then, a lot of people thought, oh, it's the blue and the pink melded together. And it's like, yeah, you could see it that way, but I actually didn't. I actually was like, well, all these girls, they're the children of prominent commanders and their wives, but most of these kids are actually biological daughters of handmaids. And so for me, I experimented playing with different shades of teal and the handmade red to come up with like, how would this come about? Because that to me was a really significant thing from a costume design perspective. It's like, ooh, yes, like bringing those two.
That's so smart.
Yeah.
Wow.
A wife and a handmaid had a baby, and it's so that was playing around, and we came up with a lot of different shades in that family. And I really, worked closely with Elizabeth Williams on that to come up with what was I going to present, because there was some, I'm not gonna lie, when you're mixing and dyeing and having fun that way, you can get some really interesting,
yes,
some really good concoctions. And so because, she obviously with the whole set design, and we played around with that and we narrowed it down. And so, I can't go to Elizabeth Moss and Bruce and all these people that I can't go with, my boards of like 20 to 30 color dyes. It's too overwhelming, so it's, so myself and Elizabeth Williams really talked about that. And then I presented to, because Lizzie was directing, obviously. So she was my main, so I presented then to her 6. I narrowed it down to 6, and I showed it to her and Nicola Daly, who was our DP for that one. And so myself and Nicola, Elizabeth Williams, our production designer, and Lizzie sat down. And then Lizzie really, okay, now let's present these ones to everybody else. So it was just a really amazing collaborative. Like, I have to just say, the whole coming together of how that funeral, the first 2 episodes came together, it really was such a special experience, because it was so collaborative and everybody was so invested and everyone was so interested in what everyone else had to say and listened. And doesn't mean every idea was accepted and it was the chosen one. It never goes that way anyways, but that people really were interested to hear your ideas of how you came to it and what happened and how, so it was really, really cool.
What an undertaking.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that would have taken you a year to design all those costumes. I don't know.
A year, but it's TV. It's bing, 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 bing. So
amazing. Wow.
Speaking of the funeral, my personal favorite part of it was Serena's costume. I called her like a majestic Dementor.
I love that.
That's kind of what it reminded me of. I just wanted to know, how did you think of her whole costume, the cloak, what do you call
So she had a cathedral veil.
veil?
And
Yeah,
the
the
front
veil.
part's called a blusher. That's what they call a blusher.
Right.
So it was scripted that Serena was to be in all black. They wanted her in all black. I was like, okay, I can get behind that for sure. It's a funeral, it's whatever. And then as you're going out and looking for inspiration and looking at fabrics, we found this. I mean, obviously I'm very, very biased where this costume is concerned. So full disclosure, everyone that's listening, super biased because I love this one so much. This incredible, like, it was like the costume gods were smiling on me this day. And it's like this midnight teal silk velvet. Velvet. For me, that cloak was always going to be velvet. I wanted it to be extremely regal. I wanted it to be very majestic. I wanted it to be very royal, but also very powerful. And people laugh. I'm a really big Star Wars fan, and so I was like, she has to have that when like when Darth Vader always comes.
Oh yeah,
here, because like, and this cloak just sort of gently
billows.
I needed my female Darth Vader, but like in like I needed that sort of like where everyone sees her, and it's just like. But I also wanted her. I really truly did want her to have a softness and a beauty to her because she is pregnant, and that's a very beautiful thing. I wanted to make sure we incorporated that. So once I found that teal, for me personally, that was it. There was no more all black.
Right.
However, I had to then do my best pitch ever to really sell that and make sure that everybody could understand it. And while they sort of gave me the go ahead, I think there was still a little trepidation on a certain level of, and I did buy some black as a backup. I said, don't worry, I've got the black. If you really hate it, which there's no possible way you will, but if you really hate it, Lizzie was just like, when I got with her to show her that fabric in person and everything else, she also fell in love with it. Was like, this is like beyond, like, when you were describing it to me, she's like, I kind of have to say, like, I was like, because the teal colors, when you hear that teal,
you don't think of it.
You're not thinking this, right? And in certain angles, it almost could look black, you know what I mean? But then the light would hit, it would just shimmer the right way in the light. And you see it's actually teal, because it's like, how, she still is a wife. Yes, she's in mourning. But for me, it was also like a little thing that I was doing for her specifically was melding wife and commander, because he was going in there to be like a boss babe that way. I was trying to figure out, how do I bring those two together without anyone saying like, oh, they're trying to do this. I wanted it to be very discreet, if you will. And
that's brilliant. I love it.
And everything was built around accentuating the baby bump, obviously, because that's the power. Her going back, that's the only reason why Serena's getting what she wants, is she's got the power of this baby. It's, a commander's baby. It's all of those things. So she has to, work that to her advantage. And also she's orchestrated this whole bad boy for the TV, for the masses. She knows June's going to be
commanding. Yes.
But there's also the moment, when you see her having her private moment with Fred's casket before they open the doors, and that like phenomenal when
that's my favorite.
It was just like, I do feel I shed a tear of joy when I saw. I was like, oh my god.
You deserved it.
Because we also, just to say, it was very, very cold, and that cape is lined in a Gore-Tex fleece lining, so it's very, very heavy. We had to build under strapping to help distribute the weight for Yvonne. It was a really heavy coat, but to protect her from the wind and element, because silk velvet, it's not a winter fabric, and for being outside in the freezing cold. So everything I had to do was really built for everybody, with keeping their comfort in mind, of how can I keep them warm and keep them comfortable and keep them going, because we were shooting that over so many days. There's a very fine trim lace around the border of it, which we don't get to see any kind of those details in Gilead. And I was allowed to push that boundary a little bit because of the nature of what this funeral was and who she was and how they were presenting to the world. So it's a very, very fine detail, but one that just finished it off. And of course, the cathedral length veil I just needed drama.
Amazing.
Yeah, I just wanted like trailing behind her, which, looks so amazing.
Yeah. You crushed that assignment, ma'am. This is so fascinating. I could talk to you all day.
It's kind of fun for me because I don't get to talk about this stuff often, like you know what I mean? Like it's so fun to have people that are really interested and want to hear it.
We
Yeah.
care. Yeah, a lot. All right, let me bring Tina over. Ask a couple questions.
Hi, I'm Tina.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
And you.
So I was gonna go back to when you brought up Lawrence's scars. I thought that was really interesting. I just want to know, is there any relevance to the patterns and designs on them, and who chooses what he gets to wear in what episode?
So for Commander Lawrence, his character was established that he fights the good fight for conformity, if you will, and always just pushes a little bit. So he has always been wearing either it had been a black or a very dark gray scarf in the past. And this year we decided, for me, part of coming into a show in a season 5 is how do I bring my own mark? And there isn't, as we previously mentioned, a lot you can do with a black suit, white shirt, whatever. So Lawrence, we definitely could push the boundaries a little bit. And we talked about the scarves. I just presented him with some ideas. We did one that is sort of a very, very deep red paisley, which we liked because it was a bit of a nod to the Handmaid and his affinity for June. He really, they did have a very special connection. He's wearing that, talking about her in one of the episodes. Then when he is talking with Serena, we had another one that has a slight pattern, and there's a very, very faint bluey teal undertone to a little bit of the pattern in that. So I played that up against doing when him and Serena. We chose that one for that. And then the rest were just black and gray. We just wanted to give a little bit more punch. There was no significance per se, other than it gave a little bit more depth. It was just a little bit more bolder, because, this whole season we're seeing Lawrence, he keeps talking about New Bethlehem. He's got a plan. He's got his own agenda happening in the back world. Yeah. So we were like trying to just always just nudge that a little bit and push the boundary a little bit. I mean, even that whole line where Putnam's like, what do you care? You've never conformed. You don't follow our rules. You don't have a wife. You don't have he's like, what do you like? And so it was a little like, we just wanted to play that up a little bit. And that's myself and Brad. Like Brad, he's so much fun. I have to just say, I heart that man. And
we love Bradley.
We love Bradley.
Yeah, love Bradley.
Just know the love is real. And he's so funny and so great. Some days he would ask me to choose, and some days I would just choose. And some days I would put 2 in and say, you get to choose. I give you my 2 favorites and you get to choose.
It's so much fun. That's so cool.
That is so cute.
Yeah. So the theme of my questions, I've got another one is kind of like neckwear. We all noticed this season June is wearing like a necklace. It's got a pendant on it. You seem excited. Yay. Is there any significance to the necklace and why she was wearing it?
Okay. So you have no idea how happy I'm about this question. She is wearing a locket.
Okay.
And I really wanted to create some very strong differences between the Gilead world and Toronto. And one of them is that in Toronto, you're allowed to embellish with details, textures, jewelry, and you don't see a lot of that. But I also, she's not a bling person. Like, it's not like we're trying to like,
right.
But I really wanted to give June something. She's no longer wearing her wedding ring because in theory it's been taken. It's got and they haven't. Her and Luke are still just trying to come back together. They're together, but they're not. They're still working stuff out. I really wanted something that was going to be a visual aid, but not cumbersome. She has lots of action. She has this, so sometimes we tuck it in, sometimes we're not. And I really, really love the idea of the locket, because I used to joke with Lizzie in the fitting room, like, who's in there? Is it Nicole and Hannah? Is it Luke and Nick? Like, who's in this? Who are we going to put in this locket? And so I will just tell you that you guys will never know who's in there, because we decided that, well, maybe after season 6, who knows? But
Wait, is there someone in there? We don't even know that. All right, fair.
Okay.
And we just decided we were never going to reveal right now anyways about that. But
I like it.
Maybe it's Aunt Lydia.
So
Lydia,
cool.
definitely.
I love, everyone
sure.
needs a little character detail. And just to note, we did the same thing. I don't know if any Eagle Eye fans will capture this or not, but for Rita, she's also wearing a single pearl necklace. And the significance to that was I was trying to also give her something. And if anyone, all those diehard fans, what would it be? And I like planting those kind of Easter eggs, like who's really paying attention,
Yeah. I think we missed that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And the pearl is actually a nod to her deceased son. It's
Son, yeah.
Stone,
Oh,
which was
Wow.
only mentioned one time. And I can't remember off the top of my head, it was either season 2 or 3. And so
Yeah.
that's how we came up with what she's wearing.
Oh, I
Oh,
love that.
I love
that's really
that.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
really cool.
I actually have a neckwear question while we're talking neckwear. Is there a reason that Nick's tie is so askew during the funeral reception?
Nick is casual. Nick, no, he usually has his tie slightly loose, and very rarely Max doesn't really like it. He's also just a bit of a nod to the character. He's a former, he's worked his way up to he's been trained to be this commander. He used to be an eye, he used to be a soldier. He's surviving in Gilead as best he can and making the choice he has to just survive and get ahead and be that. And I don't know if this will ever be addressed in season 6 or not, but his character is just, he doesn't conform fully, kind of like Lawrence, but he's not as bold and not as powerful at this time to, really, stand up to the establishment, if you will. So he's younger. He's the youngest commander we see. He's quite young. He's it's just sort of a signature move for him. He's usually one top button undone, tie slightly loose, and we see it even when he comes home and we see him going to Rose for the first time. The first thing he's doing is that in the scene.
His loosening tie, yeah.
It's just sort of his signature move / look.
Interesting. Julia is here from Germany.
Hello, Leslie. Nice to meet you.
And so nice to meet you.
Okay, so I will firstly ask you a question of Sarah, who unfortunately cannot be here with us today. And she was wondering about the red in June's clothes that we sometimes saw last season, but haven't seen a single shade of this year. And what's the significance of that?
Another amazing question. So one of the first conversations I had with Lizzie in the interview process about this, we talked about the color red. For me personally, as a designer, and I wasn't there last season. I don't know the backstories and everything else. So I'm not judging poorly on anyone's work. I want to make that clear. But for me as a designer, for what my vision is, she would never and has never and probably will never wear red for me, because to me, that's her trauma color. And there's just no way for me that she would willingly go into that color. And to be very honest, I've actually in Toronto, I've tried to really eliminate the color red altogether. You'll very rarely see red in background or anywhere else, because I really wanted to make sure that we kept that very specific to Gilead for what it signifies. She's not the only freed handmaid, obviously. So it was just important for me. It was something that I discussed that Lizzie really embraced. She's wearing, in the whole ballet episode, she's wearing these killer black boots that were that outfit was very specific, but they're actually Louboutin boots. And
nice.
But you won't see that red sole because they're blacked out. That was dual purpose, because we had to put a winter tread there because we were filming in the winter, but it's also like, I just didn't want I just don't want red for her. And we talked about that, and Lizzie really embraced that, which was amazing. And we always discussed that if and when red ever had to come into play, it would be for very specific. So I can't say that she will never, ever again. It's just that it would have to be a very specific reason as to why she would ever willingly choose to have red again.
Yeah, we saw that last year when she met Nick, and I think when she tore Fred apart. So I think that when she embraced her Gilead role one last time. So I think it kind of makes sense that she stepped out of this, but it's nice to hear it from you again.
Yeah, I was traumatized when she got to the hotel and got out of the shower and it was a red robe. I was like, oh my God, people. But anyway.
Okay, and I have a second question, and you touched on the Twitter subject a little, and I think I read on your sister's page that you actually had multiple dresses for Eva, aka Naomi, done for episode 6 when Commander Putnam was shot, because it was supposed to go blood on her as well. And I wanted to know, when was this dropped, this idea, and do you know why they didn't do it in the end?
So the original concept was that poor old Warren Putnam meets his maker, and which is sad because everybody loves Steven. He's just so awesome.
He's awesome.
Yeah, the original thing was that, keep in mind, scripts are written and the stories evolve, like developed and everything else. But then the locations and everything, all the other pieces start to go in once they get this. So things have to change scripturally, storyline, location, like based on different elements for how we're going to tell the story to the best of its ability to get the message across of what the script really is trying to say. And when we originally got the script, it was that Naomi was close enough that she was going to get sprayed with some blood, and then she goes to him and kneels down and is on top of him, like, oh my gosh, Warren, and and that's why we had all the multiples. And another reason why I purposely designed a much higher neck with all this detailing here for her, so that when the blood would go in there, hopefully, again, my horror background, like hopefully it was going to absorb into the creases in a cool way and just look a bit, gnarly for the horror of what just happened, where she just watched her husband get executed in front of her and all of her Gilead friends at the country club. And it was a very traumatic and shattering thing. To be quite honest, and because I know you guys talked to Eva, I can't remember. I was out there the day it happened, and the way they had, like, the location had this lower, like the country club was up on this slight bit of a hill, and there was these nice steps going down, and there was this lower area where they ended up dragging him out to confront him. And Naomi's character was off to the side and not in the direct line of fire anymore for what they were doing. And I don't recall actually how that was worked out, that was going to be it. But yeah, we have a bunch of these dresses that never even went on her because the blood action for her didn't happen the way it was originally concepted out. But it's okay, because I'm always much ahead, so we're building for that and making sure we're prepared for whatever comes up. And they didn't do it that way. The meaning that all the dresses weren't ruined, but it still looked pretty amazing, and she still looked great. But no, I don't remember why or how that changed completely at the time. But
were the teals brighter this season, or was it just more striking because it was like against a lot of stark white? I don't know. It just seemed like
the show has traditionally never shot in warmer months, and so I'm just bringing out the Gilead summer collection, and and I thought it was really important to do that, to show. The whole point of season 5 too is that there's an involvement of everybody, and that does include Gilead. And right from the very beginning, introducing the plums, is that Gilead, it's trying to show that Gilead's also not stagnant. They do move in their own way. It's not the norm of what the rest of the world is, but they do have some momentum and movement to them. And so trying to sort of do that, and it was just a really great opportunity to have some fun with colors. And Crabtree had said originally that she was using shades of blues and kind of more greeny colors to show the wives' status of where they were. And so I still tried to do that, but using different shades and kind of definitely going much more into the real teal. Some women like Commander Mackenzie's wife, because he's she's always in real blues. She doesn't go as teal. She's in much in the blues because she's such a high level commander's wife. Serena, we played around with hers when she was in Gilead, and I chose the shades for her based on what her scenes were for what she was doing. And then of course she goes to Toronto, so it's different. For Rose, when we introduced Rose, I kept her, she's redheaded, so I kept her kind of more in the green undertone bluey teals to act, so they're just much more flattering for her coloring. And also she's quite happy, right? She's married to Nick, she's in love with Nick, she's happy, she's not part of all this 4 seasons of the drama and history of all of that. So she's actually just really happy and lovely. And so I want to keep her colors very vibrant of that. So, but yes, they're 100% going much brighter. And again, because seasonally, we were never able to be part of spring and summer.
It is exciting. I'm tired of winter in all of those places.
Now I'm just kind of wondering, like, I want to see like the inner workings of the Gilead like costume section, like who's making these outfits and where can we buy them from, the department stores, all that kind of stuff.
Macy's is kidding. No, it's kidding.
New Gilead line.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised.
There is further in the season, they do showcase a really amazing Gilead dress shop. So we very strategically with the, collaborated with the art department on this. The art department, honestly, if I could have lived in that set, I would have. It was so beautiful, but we very strategically worked with them to put fabric samples of everything I've been using. I gave them fabrics so that it's all dressed in. So it's not, you can see.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, too, and the Marthas do all the building in Gilead. That's been, we see them tending the arena, getting ready for the funeral, because she's been in Toronto for a long time. Like, so we had to like, how does she get all these new Gilead dresses? Like, well, the Marthas, right? The Marthas are the builder bees.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Ginger, you have a question?
I do. Hi, Leslie. Nice to meet you.
And to you.
So I was curious about June's outerwear this season because she's got many different coats, and I was wondering if there was different significance to them. Like, for example, in the first episode where she's wearing, when she's got the bloodstained hands outside of Emily's house, it almost looked like she grabbed Luke's coat on her way out. And then she's got different colored pea coats. So I was just wondering what the idea was behind that.
So, this is hilarious you're asking, only because I've said the whole show, everyone's gonna be like, where does she get all these coats? And I asked the same thing. Where does she get all these coats? So to answer your question for the first episode, yes. So going back to a previous question, when we last saw June, she'd gone to, rip Fred apart in the red coat. And so for me, the red coat wasn't going to be part of my season. And so we had to come up with, well, what would she wear? And that's exactly what it is. We did buy a man's coat. It's oversized. It's believable. Luke comes from, even though he's kind of more like a foreman, but his background's construction. So we kind of had like that kind of like a worker coat that was just on the coat rack by the back door that she grabs and goes out. And she's not even like really thinking, she just grabs this coat. And that's what she ends up wearing because she's in that coat for that entire episode. And so, I know she takes it off at a couple points, and so that is exactly what it was supposed to be, is that it's a coat of Luke's that was there just by the back door that she sort of, without thinking, just grabs what is there and goes out to do her thing. So that is correct. The other coats, Lizzie and I talk, we do repeat a couple of her coats because every time I try to make sure I kept them for 2 episodes is what I tried to do. Mm-hmm. So we do see her wearing Luke's coat again when she's out gardening at night. It's like the comfort coat for her that she just sort of puts on and goes out. We did do a very long green, part of my thing was I did a lot of layering for everybody because usually every episode they wear one outfit for that whole entire episode and it sort of bleeds over into the start of the next one. And how can you have fun and tell the same story but have different dimensions of where they're at? And so it's really about layering so that they can peel back and put back on so people can see all the elements. Like, when we see them when they went to May Day, she goes down to just her vest and the Henley that she's wearing, and then the coat can come back on. And it's also really for practical reasons because we do shoot a lot of stuff outside, but then we're going into interior studios. So it's like the hot, cold, they die of heat or die of cold, so kind of balance that out. So it's really blending a look that embodies the character of what's happening with also taking into the consideration the practicality of what's happening. A couple of the pea coats, we just sort of, you don't always get to clock them the way that it's shot and everything, but we did dress some stuff in as if it was maybe Moira's. Moira has been on her, she's been out of Gilead the longest. She's had some other stuff. So we did try to dress a few things in as if maybe she could potentially be borrowing something from Moira. And some of the stuff, Liz and I did say it. Liz is like, I don't care. I just love this coat. It looks so good. It's perfect for this outfit. I don't care.
I love that.
Oh my God, I have an urgent question. I just thought of this. Sorry. What happened to the pink purse we saw her wearing when she's filming? I haven't seen it in any of the show yet, but it was a very notable pink purse.
For season 5?
Yeah, maybe it's hers, but yeah, it's in the car that like OT just posted some behind the scenes.
Oh, that's her. Yeah, that's not a costume. That's
hers.
Yeah. Lizzie hates filming with a purse as a character.
Okay. But she carries that pink purse in real life.
Paper, yeah, like she doesn't, it's a distraction. But she always has a purse on her person personally.
How funny.
Because she has a lot of action. She has a lot of movement and it's always, whatever. But as she always has one, but not on camera.
So funny. I hate carrying purses, so I totally get that. But then she does in real life. That's so funny. Okay. Thank you. That purse was very entertaining to me.
Yeah, that's her personal.
It did not seem like June. So I was like, when is this going to be on screen? Okay. Sorry, Ginger. Go ahead.
My second question then was about Serena's style at the Wheeler house. I'm sure that must have been fun to do just because you get to do like a whole new style for her. But I'm just curious, like, what was the influence for how she dressed there?
So yeah, we got to have a lot of fun. Yvonne, like super duper fun, love her to pieces. The whole thing for her character was, how do we meld Serena into keeping Gilead values? And she really is, she believes, right? She really actually believes in many things about the Gilead way. She has had her eyes open that there's room for change now, you know, and I think she had really thought she was going to be that change until they're like, oh yeah. No. Like, you know, I think it's Commander Lawrence is like, Gilead doesn't have a place for women like you. You're what's he say to her? You're a complicated woman or something.
Yes.
And he's
They
like,
don't have the infrastructure for complicated women.
yeah, you know, and so I think she fully believes she's going to be fully embraced and sort of step in as Fred and be able to be the, you know, and that doesn't happen for her. So she, you know, Serena has to adapt pretty quickly. Like, what is my world going to be? And we really wanted to make sure she kept some of that. Like I used a lot of hidden teal references throughout her costuming in Toronto, but the Wheelers, it was really important to establish them that they just reek of money and power and influence in their own way in Toronto. And so they have everything at their disposal. And, you know, trying to dress Mrs. Wheeler very proper, you know, she's also a believer, but high fashion, high money, you know, she gets the best. Same with Mr. Wheeler. His suits are all like, you know, gorgeous, bespoke, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. And for Serena, she's living there. Keep in mind, she has no real job, no money. So she's at the mercy and the kindness. And when she first goes to the Wheeler, she doesn't really realize that they're like evil Smurfs in disguise. You know what I mean? She's like, oh my gosh, you know, look at this. I've made it. I have all these ideas. And so we really wanted to play around with, you know, we had Serena sort of also really, again, I mentioned this in previous looks, playing her pregnancy was always the key. Emphasizing the belly bump and the softness of a glowing, maternal, nesting woman that is also trying to really does want to influence Toronto, that Gilead is good. And as the story's going and she thinks she's going to be this ambassador, and she realizes very quickly that it's more about the fertility aspect of everything, that women and men, even everyone wants to know about that. How does she change? And so she loses a bit of the staunch sort of armor of the Gilead look to soften, to make her more inviting, that she wants to invite people to come into her world. And so she can preach the word of whatever it is and try to sell people on that way. And so it was like a lot of soft fabrics for her. We opened her up a little bit more at the neckline because, you know, with the blouse, like there's a lot of crossover because it helped to accentuate the baby bump. Anything that I could, you know, the Empire line that really emphasized that. We did do some pants for her when we were trying to keep her a little bit more commandery, but then when she goes to the Wheelers, she softens a bit more, and we went back more to the skirts for her, but a little bit more fashion forward. You know, she's wearing some with tall boots and because she also has to amalgamate into her surroundings, which is Toronto, and blend in and, you know, forever be a chameleon that Serena is, you know?
Now I'm wondering where Serena gets her clothes from.
Alanis Wheeler has a charge card at very high end.
Yes, I believe that's true.
She has like like a black, what do you call it in America? Like a black
card.
Black card. She's got the black
card. You get a black card.
I love Mrs. Wheeler's all the clothes for her, the character. It really like makes the character.
Thank you. I have to tell you, we had a lot of fun, myself and Genevieve. I really needed her, you know, the visual of her to be so deceiving of the evilness within.
Yeah.
You know, we do lots of soft colors and soft yellow. She's wearing buttery yellow and she's wearing baby pink, and she's just, you know, pretty and just so and delicate. And again, like Serena, we give her soft fabrics to sort of hide and mask that she's sinister underneath and that she will take control, which she does. And you know, the whole, you know, like that whole scene where she tells her to go to her room, like we purposely put her in cream pants and this cream and soft pink blouse, and they're doing flowers, and it's such a beautiful moment, and it's like, go to your room. And it's just like, you know what I mean? And It's so creepy.
The dichotomy. Yeah.
It's
I
very
love it.
effective though. I love it.
Yeah.
So we definitely I had a lot of fun with Genevieve doing that. We really got to have more fun with making somebody look like really dripping in money and the colors and the textures. We were able to go a bit bolder and a bit beyond with her. And it was a lot of fun. And she was so game. And so it was great.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Claudia?
Hi there.
Hello.
I'm Claudia, but today I'm asking 2 questions for Scarlett, who couldn't be there, but you kind of already dived a bit into this, but she wanted to know if about Lizzie said in a recent interview that June was in Canada and out of the Gilead uniforms. Now a new style had to be created for her. What were you trying to show in terms of who June is and her journey now?
So that's a great question. Lizzie and I have spent so much time always talking back and forth on this and what is the evolution of her journey and her character and who she is. We got the opportunity to really recreate June now because she is in Toronto and in the free world. And I really wanted to make sure that her costumes informed her choices of what she's doing. And there was, again, I had mentioned previous, but a lot of layering to her because June has a lot of layers, first and foremost, right? There's many layers to June. So that was the base of that. But then it's how do we play that into, I don't think any costume designers, but I was never trying to make it like, oh, and look, they've given her 6 layers. So we can do, it has to be very seamless, you know what I mean? And it was just very natural. And sometimes she peels back the layers and sometimes she doesn't. And Lizzie's always in control of that. We give her all the tools to work with. She's the actress, she's the director, she's the producer, she is the character. She knows when she wants to lose something or when she doesn't. And if she's not sure, she'll ask me like, what do you think of that? Do you think that? And I was like, well, I would maybe save it here because, or, oh my God, I love it. That's the perfect line. Or I trust you, Lizzie, you know what you're doing, so it's sort of, I feel really blessed that we had such a wonderful, wonderful rapport to be able to have those conversations. And I could make suggestions to her anytime I wanted. She was always open to hearing them. She's ultimately going to do what she knows feels right in that moment for her and her character. And I'm always very respectful of, I trust that she does know that. So I just want to give her those tools to be able to do that. Her character for me, although I haven't really, this is going to sort of be the first time I guess I've really outwardly stated it is that in reflection and thinking about it and how do I see her character, June to me is almost like a journalist in a war-torn country. She's always there and ready to get into the action, but more on the periphery. So she's not in a uniform. She's not in like, I always felt like, she's always in the action, but not right in the direct of line of fire per se, like that. And so she's always very practical. Like everything about June, her choices had to be practical for me. June has been there, seen it, done it, has been so like, she's ready for action. And she's just, unfortunately, based on the traumas and everything. And even though she's back and she's trying to undo some of this stuff or work forward in her journey to let go, she can't, she's not there yet. And so I sort of feel everything. So we always had to make sure she had something that has pockets, because that's how she hides things. She's always prepared that way. It's the same thing about, mobility and being ease of, even a lot of her contemporary stuff we built for her, building her some pants, building her some of her tops, just so that they had all the right elements that looked great on her, felt great on her, but gave her, what she needed to feel empowered in that moment for that scene and that sequence and everything else. And I just sort of always felt like, you see these, if you see, if you watch, news and you see these journalists that are embedded because she can't ever fully really escape everything. And it's kind of like those characters, like they're not characters, they're people, like those journalists. It's the same thing. It's like, it's in you, it gets ingrained in you. And that unfortunately is what's happened with June. Like Gilead's now ingrained in her. You can take her out of Gilead, but you can't take Gilead out of her. All these things have happened. They really are true. They've happened. They are what has made her. And it was really important to create a really strong visual difference between what we've seen her in flashbacks in previous seasons, because that was a very different June. you can't go back. You can only go forward. And how is she working through that? And how is she trying to, come to resolution with some things in her world? And can she come to that? It's like, we don't know yet, it's just like, it's like every 2 steps forward, there's 3 steps back for June, and how is that sort of gonna shake out in the next season and help her, or will it? We don't know.
Yeah. The second question is something else entirely. It was the first glimpse I think we got from the new season. What was the concept, the inspiration idea behind the poster for season 5?
Oh my gosh, you guys. Oh my gosh. If you want to talk about magical moments, that was that. So we had done the week before, we had done some tests in the water tank. Lizzie wasn't part of that. We used her stunt double, Jen Murray, for that. Thank you, Jen Murray. Lizzie and I had talked about a couple of things about what it was. So what happens often in a show is you have lots of backup things in the cast closets and things that you try and build or work out or buy or whatever it might be, and they don't make it to camera for whatever reason, but you're not quite ready to get rid of them in case something, for future use, it could come up. So we did have some pieces in her closet, and Lizzie and I spoke about that, and where she's like, I think we have stuff. I think we can make this work. And we talked about a few different ideas. Then we tested on Jen Murray a couple of things, and she's like, I saw the test. I think this will be okay. This should be okay. And I was like, that's the problem. They're just okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, like after going back and forth, it was just like, I don't know why I do this to myself. I was like, it's just okay. It's not special enough. I just think we have to go a little bit somewhere else. And I left that with her. It was a really busy time for me for this other episode. And she knew that. And she didn't really want to put anything overwhelmingly more onto my plate. But then her and I talked about 36 hours before this shoot. And she said, Leslie, I hate to say this, but I think you're right. Like, I think you're right. Like, I know anything that you can build me is going to be better than what we have. And I don't want to say it because it's like, in a day and a half, we have to shoot this. And and I was like, okay. And it was just kind of like, so I said, so I had some ideas and I talked to her a little bit about it. And she just looked at me and she said, here's the thing. I trust you implicitly with this. And I think whatever you're going to do is going to be magic. And I was like, okay, thank you. Thanks so much. And then you walk away and you're like, oh my God. So she just let me go for it. And in 36 hours, myself and my beyond killer, amazing costume team, my sewing team, Yulia, Katerina, Roland, we just built 4 dresses. Oh. And what I did was, for me, it was all about the neckline, right? So there's so many different ways that you can show strength in a woman. But yet I wanted strength, sexiness, vulnerability, beauty, softness, fear. Like I was like, how am I going to embody all of these things? And so that's why I had to do 4 different dresses, because every neckline for me did and said something different. Until we saw it on her, I wasn't going to know. And I didn't get to fit anything on her until the day of the shoot. Oh, and so that was like, okay, and we tried the first one, and I kind of the dress that made it into the poster was what I always call, I always make what I call a wild card. I always have a wild card in my world. It's like, here's my wild card. It's going to either be amazing or it's going to be awful. Don't know till I get it on ya. And it was the wild card that won. We built this dress, and it was we did a silk chiffon overlay because we knew it was going to be in the water. I wanted it to be really ethereal and sort of have floating around her, but it melts into her skin like a second skin, because it's like the washing away of. So the silk chiffon, once it gets wet, it's has, because it's fabric, would be on the skin. You can see wrinkles and texture in that. So it's like, it's like she's molting out of that. It's like, it was so magical. The photographer Zoe, she was just, everything about that day. Honestly, you guys, it couldn't have been more magical. And it's a shame that not a lot, you can't be there to really be a part of that everybody couldn't, because it just really all came together. We got extra bits of fabric and we just cut it up and put it into balls to float in the water around her for different concepts. So it's like this, it almost looks like smoke under the water. Yeah. Which was so amazingly cool. And then we threw the red robe in there, and the Handmaid's red robe. And it's just like, let it float behind her. and then so she sort of walks up into it. So it's just like, you know, and on the day, like we were playing with as like, you know, the neckline, it was a very wide boat neck. And then as she's moving around, it was getting a little bit, you know, she's like, can we open this up at all, Leslie? Like, I'm feeling a bit tight. And sometimes it would ride up a little bit and not look as attractive. And so I'm like, yep, just, you know, I always carry scissors. And so out come, like, I have these like little pocket scissors. And so out come the scissors and we're just snipping it away. And I'm tucking in because I can't get into the water and sew everything up. So we're tucking them into like how we're going to keep stuff down. And I have to just tell you, I was actually away on holiday after the show when this poster was released, and I just was speechless for about 20 minutes. I couldn't, the power and beauty and everything in that poster, I think is just beyond. It's so beautiful. As I say, everything came together that day to make that a beautiful, beautiful experience. And I think it really translates into that poster. Lizzie is beyond stunning, like beyond stunning.
It's so amazing.
Strong and powerful. Like she's everything. And it was everything we wanted. And then even more. And our photographer, Zoe, was just like, she came in from New York for that. Like, wow. It was just.
All right. Rachel.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for taking our questions today.
Thank you for being here.
So I have two questions. My first question is, what was the most challenging costume that you designed for season 5? And also your favorite costume from season 5?
Oh, wow. Do I only have to pick one? You know, the most challenging definitely has to, you know, goes to the funeral. It goes to the funeral because of the sheer magnitude of everything that had to be thought of and executed, and the, like on a grand scheme, like it wasn't necessarily one costume. Obviously Serena is the showstopper, but every single costume in there had to really be thoughtfully plotted out for the men. What are we going to do to elevate the commanders? What are we going to do to make the like every single thing? And so I would say that the funeral overall presented the most challenges. And also don't forget, the emphasis, a lot of it is on the funeral, but then it's also June and Luke at the ballet. And it was kind of, how do I make them stand out in a darkened theater? And originally Lizzie wanted to wear black. Like the white was a big conversation to how to, like, you know, getting her. And she's like, Leslie, white on no, hard no. And I was just like, okay, maybe just think about it overnight. And it's just like, and you know, it was really early days for her and I working together and figuring each other out as well. You know, I'm already like, Serena's not gonna wear black. She's gonna wear teal if I have to, you know. It's like you're not doing black, I'm gonna wear white. Like it's like, you know, how am I? It's sort of going in and like, hi everybody, I'm brand new, but here's how it's going. And it's just sort of how do you bring that to the table in a really creative way that they understand my vision? And we didn't. We didn't. White was not the first choice. Let me tell you, friends. White was not. But we got there, and through much, you know, back and forth, we got there. And also to give June, you'll notice it's the one and only time you'll ever see her in a dress since she was a handmaid. And this was a very specific reasoning for it. It was that Luke had promised to take her to the ballet when they got married. It was something that Gilead happened. It never happened. And this was creating a romantic date to try to bring back them as a couple, to try to bring back what they were into where they are. It was all these things. And it was about making her very feminine, making her very, not that June isn't feminine normally, but like in the cues of what people see as feminine, with the dress and the boots. And the whole boot thing was that we played up her wearing these boots and Serena, and Lizzie very beautifully from her director brain put in 2 shots of these 2 women similar in many ways, and so diametrically different in all these other ways, that they both did a shot of the boots going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Lizzie, of course, is wearing the beautiful Louboutins, and you know, Serena's wearing her beautiful Prada boots, and it was a very beautiful moment of like, you know, that sort of world. And we needed her to, and that was where he gives her the locket. That was where the locket comes into like placing this. So we introduced it at that moment, a pretty piece of jewelry that will become significant, that she wears it throughout. So that was a challenge unto itself as well, just because how do you get people on board? And it is, nobody likes to wear white on camera. It's like the DP's worst nightmare. Women, white is such a hard color to wear because, when you're putting under, it shows everything. You're trying to figure out how do you make it, like it has to be the right dress, the right fabric, the right everything. And the fabric has some texture to it because white can be very flat and can be blinding. Like you have to have all the elements. And so then that was how, when we added her amazing, this ecru color alpaca cashmere wool coat that has a bit of texture to it. So it gave it a little bit of depth. And that whole point was just really to make her very dreamy and hopeful and thinking more of the future than we've seen her, as opposed to the past, until they get outside and they look up and all around are the big screens showing the Gilead funeral. And of course, then it's like her world comes crashing in. It was the good and evil. It was all of that. So there was challenges for that. And also even just into that whole sequence was the ballet dancer's costume. I found really interesting and a challenge because it was this whole underwater theme for the ballet. That they did with the silks that Elizabeth Williams created with Lizzie for the actual ballet dancer, and how the ballet dancer's moves keep bringing us from Gilead to Toronto, Toronto to Gilead. So how do you marry that? And it was a lot of, I made about 3 or 4 different outfits for the ballerina from New York to try on what was going to do it. And in the end, this really beautiful soft, like I had like this ombre silk chiffon corally color outfit. Like, is she a piece of coral floating in the sea? I did an opalescent white. Is she a pearl? We did like a darky green. Is she seaweed? Like, I wasn't sure what we're going to do. And in the end, we went with a really soft, pale blue over top of this. We found this amazing silk chiffon that has like a metallic-y liquid look to it, and it's layered, so when she moves you get hints of it, and when the lights hit her she looks like she's wet, like it looks like there's water, like so that came together amazingly. But that whole thing was challenge in a great way for me as a costume designer. Like, how am I going to achieve these things where everyone's going to be like, wowzers? And I'm really happy to say that it really did happen. It was amazing, and every element of that came together just so beautifully.
It was incredible. Yeah, that entire sequence was just absolutely stunning. It's interesting to hear that you say that the white was a discussion, because it just seemed like that had always been the concept, to have the black and the white.
No.
So interesting. That's a very interesting.
It wasn't. And every woman loves their little black dress, and so it's kind of like, do we just make them both? There was just all these discussions, and so white was definitely not necessarily the winner from the beginning. It was always discussions of how can we highlight this beautiful date night for you and Luke, but then contrast with what was happening with Serena at the funeral. And that all these things are like big discussions for that. Talking to Nicola Daly, our director of photography, having her come and see, like, hi Nicola, here's your least favorite color in a dark environment, because I really needed to make sure in everything I do with June and Luke is that for me as a costume designer, it's like, how do I make the viewer's eyes always go to them without realizing that that's what they're doing? And so my color choices and textures, colors, fabrics is always about that. How do you just always instinctively, not just because they're the main characters, but how do you balance everything out so that they're always highlighted without you realizing that that's what I'm doing?
And that's absolutely what happened, especially when they're in the theater and your eyes instantly go to June because she's the only one wearing white.
Yeah. So, but we had to make it sure that it's not that, other people had lighter colors around her. We had some camel color. So tonally, I had to make sure that BG that were placed around her had some elements, but that it's not like, hey, they're purposely putting this person here so that,
Right. Oh, and did you have a favorite costume from season 5?
Oh gosh, I do. I have 2 favorite costumes, actually. I have 2 favorite
Tell us both.
costumes. Definitely Serena from the funeral. I'm not going to lie. I did wear her cloak around the costume office a couple times. I was trying to figure out the weight dispersal in fairness. Like, I was like, wow, this thing weighed like 12,000 pounds.
Wow.
Because it was so fully lined and everything. So I was just like, how am I going to do this? But also I did feel a little like powerful. I was like, oh my God, I want one of these. And so that Serena definitely, that costume was just so magical for so many different reasons. I also love a costume that's coming up. We haven't got to it yet, so I'm not sure if I should say what it is. I don't know how live we are, but
you can tell us. We could cut it out.
there is a costume coming up in episode 9 that's coming up. I will just tell you that it's on Ever Carradine. One of her costumes is.
We suspected that might be what was coming.
Yeah, hers is pretty magical.
Should be interesting.
Hers is pretty magical. But I will also say, from a everyday costume point of view, like standpoint, I love June's closet. I would wear a lot of her stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like what we did for her. She has a lot of really great stuff. It's practical, it's comfortable. You know,
we saw and are excited about a meetup coming up with her and Nick. Did she, like, who chooses her? Do you guys work together to choose those outfits, or it comes from you and then she approves?
So what happens for that with Lizzie specifically, we do really, you know, her time is very precious because she's wearing so many hats specifically on this show.
Yeah.
Which also, she's also then developing her other stuff. So her time is of the essence with her in terms of maximizing it with her. Now, you know, I can walk and talk with Lizzie. I told her in the very beginning, I said, I am not afraid to stalk you outside your trailer and walk. Give me the 2 minute. If it's going to give me the 2 minutes I need, she kind of loves that because she is very invested and she is very integral to the decisions of everything. And she likes to know what's happening. However, she just has a lot going on. So I have no problem doing that to any of the cast. I'm like, if you're busy, that's fine. I will busy with you walking to this. And I just don't mind that at all. And when we do big fittings with her, I'm very prepared. I have a boatload of stuff and we just go through a lot. I will talk to her about my thoughts and feelings about where I see things. And again, I'm very open. If somebody doesn't like something, if you don't even like it, we're not even going to try it. Like, don't worry about it. But if you're, so we just do a lot of fitting photos. And then I put a lot of like cut and paste, do a lot of stuff together. And then I will pitch it to her for where I think each look fits. She will either come back and go, yes, I absolutely love that. Or, you know what I was thinking there? Maybe we do the blue jacket because I'm thinking like, so I provide her an easier format for her to see everything that we've done. And I place it all together. And then I give her, I create a big Bible for her. She has a Bible binder. Or
That's awesome.
Can you just send me this? Sometimes it can be overwhelming too. So then I will just do it by I'll put three of the strongest looks together and say, this is what I'm thinking. Yeah. And she'll say, love, 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 you choose. Or, oh, I love this one the most. Can we do this one? Or can I say this other one? Because I was thinking that, so we just work together that way. So it's always extremely collaborative. Awesome. I have to, just mention that this show for me happened to just be very magical in that I was very in sync with all the cast on their characters. We got their looks. There wasn't a lot of pushback or I never had an I hate. There was never, there wasn't, I like this less, but I will wear it. Yeah. And so I always call those the one-hit wonders. I'm like, okay, you have this one scene. Is this a one-hit wonder? And they'll be like, yeah, keep that for the one-hit wonders. And, so it went that way. And specifically with Lizzie Moss, it was so great. We had so much great stuff to work with. We didn't even get to showcase a lot of the stuff that we loved. We had to just pick the best of the best that we thought were right for that and then move forward. So we were armed at all times to have stuff and the evolution of her character, and really, again, being able to shoot spring and summer and being able to showcase people with not big, heavy coats and parkas and suit/beanies and clubs, and really seeing people was so fun. And for not just me, but for the cast, because they're like, we've never got to do this before, so that part was really amazing. And it was just always very collaborative. There was no my way or the highway for me from anybody or me towards anybody. It was just really fun and collaborative. The unity of being on the same page for everybody to just tell the story of their character was always there.
That's awesome.
Does June have specific outfits she wears for different love interests? Like, do you have like a Luke set of clothes and a Nick set of clothes, or is it just,
It's actually a pretty funny question, because we always made sure that when she was going to go see Nick, we did put a little bit of extra effort into making sure she just looked amazing. Like, you know, her, you know,
Thank you.
yeah, there was a little bit of, we had to put up the, like, you know, the sexy factor just a titch to make sure she's your old love and make sure that
Yes.
you always leave them wanting more. And so it definitely made sure she looked always delicious that way.
We appreciate that extra effort and look forward to it. Sorry, Rachel, you had another question, right?
Yeah, thank you. This is a question from Scarlett, again, who couldn't be with us today. And you already discussed a lot about Anne Crabtree and how she had established this very specific aesthetic going into, and you're coming in season 5. Was it difficult to stay within the signature Handmaid's Tale look and style while adding your own take and vision? And I think you may have answered this before, but if you have any other thoughts or caveats to that.
Yes and no. The thing for me, season 5, so much has happened. So the other bonus to that is because we spend so much time in Toronto creating these other characters that had no reference really. We haven't really got to see them fully developed as characters in Toronto. So I really did get to set the tone and the look and feel of that. So that was amazing. What was important to me with respect to what Anne Crabtree had initiated was keeping the underlying guidelines. However, because Gilead has progressed, everything is, you know, gone ahead. We had to show that progression a little bit more. And I was able to do that with, firstly, you know, we mentioned about the different shades of the teals being much brighter this season for sure. That was something that hasn't really been done because they didn't have the opportunity. There was no, you know, there was no spring and summer shot before. We also, I do a lot more subtle detailing with top stitching and the likes of that type of details into the clothing, and kept it a little bit more regal and really, you know, I made sure that we always hide the closures and that you do all these elements that Anne created and established as that being part of the world of essentially not having choice in Gilead. You know, it's all about conformity. So what I was able to expand on and you know, push the bubble just a little bit further was some very subtle details. And an example would have been adding the lace to Serena's cloak for the funeral. You know, we don't get to see those embellishments on the women in Gilead. In, you know, trying to just push those things a little tiny bit. I changed the sleeve lengths. We're doing full sleeve lengths, not 3/4. I started to get away from the 1950s flavor. My inspiration was really more 1930s. If that's a little bit of a backstory for you guys, is that my underlying for Lizzie, for everybody was going into like the late 30s, early 40s for silhouettes and lines and creating that, because the 50s, while except for the flashback, we did a flashback where Serena and Naomi are looking at the children for the first time. And I went back more to stay in that traditional, because that's when they were still trying to figure things out. And someone had asked me on Instagram, like, their colors are so very different. It's like, that's when Gilead was still being formed. It was early days. Nothing had been quite tightened up, if you will. But trying to create different necklines and sleeve lengths and using stitching and a bit more of that, doing a little bit more of that for detailing, which was very, you know, 30s and early 40s.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for all your questions.
I just wanted to ask you about the ballet scene again, but this time for the ballet dancer's costume.
So we had a real ballerina from New York that came in, and a choreographer. They came in and she was great, right? Because she's telling me, we were talking about what works, whatever. She was like, because I built her leotard and everything. Everything for her was completely custom except for her shoes and tights. They were her own shoes because they were already broken in, which is really, really important to a dancer. Yeah. And so for her, we made a couple of the costumes just due to sweat. She had a dress rehearsal the night before, and we just want to make sure it's all like very delicate fabrics, and that, you know, even a drop of water, it's like hard to. So for her, it was just that she was really amiable to anything in terms of, they had worked out with the choreographer was, she thought the concept of the underwater thing was really cool. And so she was just excited to see what her look was going to be. And you know, we strayed away from a traditional tutu. It had to be really soft and flowy to go with the flow of the ocean. And when she got in and saw the costume, she was really like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, look at it, it looks wet. It looks like water. And she was like doing, like, I have video of her what I sent to Lizzie and the choreo. Like I was showing them when she was moving around in the fitting room to show how the skirt would move and catch the underneath side of everything. And so it was good, but she's a professional dancer. She was like one of the easiest because she had all of her perfect measurements, her full, I was just like, oh my God, great. Which is brilliant. She showed up and stepped into it. It was like a glove. And, so that part was, it was just more finding the right fabrics and figuring out, as I say, Elizabeth Williams, the production designer, it was really fun. She would come downstairs. Like my office was on the main floor of the building. Hers was upstairs. And she'd come down often. We'd always be collaborating back and forth for this. And I'd be like, oh my God, look at this fabric. Is she coral? Like, one day, and every day she'd come down and for me, should be something different. I'm like, no, she's a pearl. She's a pearl. She's around that. And then it would be like, you're not going to believe this. I think we should make her seaweed. It's just like, she's just always laughing. Like, and she loved them all. Like they were all brought something different to the table. Yeah. But it was also when they were working on the dance moves, what was going to be, I didn't know that part till much later because they were rehearsing and practicing in New York. And so it was also solidifying a little bit of that, which then it came like, she's just this beautiful piece of water. She's just part of the water.
Helen, last person, I think.
Hi, Leslie. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Helen. So nice to meet you.
Hi. I have a question I probably answered already, but I'm going to go ahead and ask it anyway. You said that Lizzie was not very keen on wearing the white during the ballet episode. And what is actually my original question was because I remember it mentioned in an interview that Lizzie also worked on the Jezebel dresses from season 1 and 3. So she had a lot of input into those. So I wanted to ask if she also had input into the white dress, which she said she didn't really want it to have in the first place. So I just wanted to ask if she collaborated or if it's just all your idea.
It's all me. No, I'm just kidding. She has no say. It's not that she didn't. So just to clarify, it's not that she didn't want to wear the white. It was just a discussion of how it wasn't the first choice. It wasn't the first choice. So once we sort of like when you're talking all the elements of the story and how it's all going to unfold, and don't forget, she was the director. Nobody knew more information on how this whole thing was going to unfold than her. So I'm just waiting to get information from her and, try to sell her on my pitch. But yes, she was. We tried a lot of different white dress. We did a lot like it's never just, here you go, here's this dress and have a nice day. It's not, it became more, her and I became more comfortable with her giving me the reins to do things for her as the season went on because we established our relationship. This was the first costume I'm doing with her. Mm-hmm. We're still feeling each other out. You know what I mean? So she is not giving me free reign. and I wouldn't expect her to, and I wouldn't, it's not how it works. So she's very involved. And, I will say Lizzie's very much game for a lot of stuff. And if it's right for the scene and if it's right for the story, she's so like amazingly open to that stuff. However, she's still the actress that's got to wear it. So she has to feel good. She has to feel her character. She has to feel beautiful and powerful and vulnerable. She has to feel all those things in it. So it's not just, we had many, many white coats and cream coats that we tried and dresses and different footwear. Everything was all a process. So it wasn't that she was a hard no to the white dress. It was just kind of like, wait, it was sort of more like, and then as everything else was unfolding and developing, she's like, white is definitely the right choice. White is definitely where we should go. Let's go for this. Let's do this. So, yeah.
The dress also kind of looks like it could come from Lizzie's closet. So
she does. That style is sort of called a fit and flare, that sort of style of dress. And Lizzie does, she's only 5'3". She's petite, and that it hits her in all the right places for all the, for not like, because where that hit her on her knee length we didn't have to do too much to that dress. We had to like alter it to a little bit for her, but for the length and everything, it was great. It was a little Ted Baker, fit and flare dress. And it looks so, dreamy and fun and a little bit magical for her to go on this dream date that was promised to her so many years ago when her and Luke got married, and they just never were able to get to it. So it encompassed all of the things that we wanted it to do for that specific scene.
So are you on set all the time?
Not all the time. I go to set anytime there's a new costume going onto camera for the first time, it's called being established. And I always go to established costumes and at any time I can. But I also have meetings and then fittings. TV is very, very fast paced. We're always, I'm always I'm usually the Handmaid's Tale, often TV series, not all, but often TV series shoot in what they call blocks. So they do 2 episodes in a block.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not all do that, but The Handmaid's Tale certainly does that. So I'm shooting 2 episodes. So I'm very into those 2 episodes. And then I'm 2 episodes ahead and preparing for that and dealing with another director and more content. And so it is quite busy.
That's so much.
It can be sometimes. So I go to set as much as I can. I love to see how it's all translated onto camera. It's really important for that, and making sure that the cast know I'm there and feel like I really do my very, very best to be there to establish all the costumes. You can't do it every single time, but I do try. So for anything that's certainly a bigger costume, certainly any of my main characters, you try to be there as best I can.
I don't know. That's such a consuming job you have.
It's not 9 to 5, I can tell you that. I got to build this amazing, which is where the dress shop comes into.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll tell you 2 things about the dress shop. So we get to kind of see where do the wives in the upper echelon of Gilead.
Yeah, I love that.
That's kind of really fun. The set, every little detail in that set is phenomenal. You guys stop, rewind, because there's so many cool, really, super crazy cool elements. And the art department came to me and was so wanting to collaborate with Leslie. Can we please work with you on this? We want to make sure we are encapsulating your vision of what you've done this season with their vision. And they just did the most amazing job on this. Elliot, Anne, Elizabeth, William, all the art department came and built this breathtakingly beautiful. I took photos of myself in this joint. Okay. I was just like, this is my new office, everybody out. And it was gorgeous. And I loved so much that we did those little Easter eggs where there's fabrics from all the dresses that I built through the season are in there. And to show that it's not random, because I dye a lot of my fabrics. There is stuff that we can purchase off the rack, but not off, at a fabric store. But a lot of my stuff is dyed to that person to be for what that is. And so I'm getting all the right tones. So everything is, beautifully balanced on, that character. We buy vintage fabrics, but if I can't find them, I'm buying, modern fabrics that I'm making to be what it should be for Gilead. And so you can't just go buy that, and nor could they. So it was really important to me. And I felt so honored that they came and wanted that to be a part of their world. So I just, everything. And then we put in a lot of dresses into the windows and everything that were from the costume department. Obviously, where there's last I checked, there is no Gilead store. You can just go buy them. So coming soon. No, so
next season.
Yes, my capsule collection with the Banana Republic. So we did that. And so for Naomi has this big event coming up. And for that, I built 2 dresses for her. They're polar opposites and everything, but we did put the reject dress is in the dress shop, and all the stuff that's in there, we gave them a lot of accoutrements that were rejects throughout the season that didn't make it to camera because something else was chosen, are in there.
Yeah.
They're great for whatever reason.
Smart, yeah.
Gave them lots of shoes because I dye the shoes and everything. So the shoes are all in this dress shop. It's really, really magical and amazing and fun. And for Naomi, she's obviously a build for me head to toe all the time. And she's always so fun. And Ever Carradine, honestly, so much fun, so lovely. You could put that woman in a paper bag and she'd rock it. She, looks amazing. We got her down to a science that she was always like, I couldn't believe it. I come in she has kids and a family and everything. So we were trying to minimize how much
in Toronto
ahead of time. It was the same thing. She was always just like, whatever you do, I trust you, girl. You got this. You've got Naomi Putnam down. I listen to you, and I'm just like, okay, well, geez, oh, thanks. We just got her to a science, and she would come in and, very maybe a small nip and tuck here or something, or a hemline to be adjusted, very minimal, by the end of the season, very minimal tailoring had to get done on her. She could just pretty much walk into the stuff. So she was so much fun. And that's a really exciting thing. And, you know, I sort of feel she gave me one of the biggest compliments throughout my season, was just that she was just saying to me, she goes, I would wear this on the red carpet. And I was just like,
wow, that is enormous.
so I was just like, yeah, oh, what, this whole thing? Like, it's just, so that was really special and really nice. When, you know, obviously you never want anybody, whether you're trying to make them look bad, you need to make them look good bad, you know, for TV. You never want anyone to go to set hating their clothes or hating their costumes. And even with all, like Moira, we had, you know, we didn't talk a lot about her, but we really found her character this season, and her costumes were so fun, and she loved everything. There was nothing that I couldn't put her. She's like, oh my God, this today. Like, she loved everything. And she said to me, which again, these are the compliments and the things that I live for, when they're like, I really feel this, like, this is fine. We found her.
Yeah.
That's what's important to me, because
that's the highest compliment, right? Yeah,
it really truly is. And when they feel good, I want to work everything out in the fitting room, so that the last thing that they have to think of is just put the clothes on and go hit your marks and do your thing. So for me, it's always about making sure we work out all the kinks in the fitting room. If they don't like something, I'm not too precious. It's like, you don't like it, that's okay, I can change that. You know, for me, it's understanding what they don't like, why they don't like something, so that I can better understand that.
Better,
and this group, don't forget, I'm season 5. Brand new. They're season 5 the whole time. So they know what they like, what they don't like. They know these characters. I'm going into their brains to help get a better understanding of where they're at for their character, to help me give them what they need to do, you know, their visual aids to give them what they need. So it's pretty amazing. And this group of actors have been together a long time, and they're all so, you know, wonderfully individualized people, and so wonderfully harmonious as a collective. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, they seem everything we learn about them, we love them more. We also didn't talk about Mayday. I just wanted to compliment, like, I love that camp so much. That was amazing. And they're new season 5, so you got to control that look and that.
Mayday was fun. That was really hard too, because they were going to be in that costume for 3 episodes. So it was important to really make sure that we layered in the right way and gave the elements. And it's so funny, because here in Toronto, the weather was changing. We were at that time here where it was changing rapidly, and it started out very cold, where you could see everyone's breath, to like, oh my God, I'm sweating, you know.
Right.
When we see like, even just after that was happening, when Serena and June meet up.
That's what Eva said. Yeah. She was sweltering.
Serena's in a long coat. We built this skirt for her that we've lined and built out of warmer fabric, because it starts in the winter. And her sweater, she's wearing a cashmere sweater, to the point that we had to go and cut the back out of a sweater. We sent sweaters. When you see her, she's got the whole back of the sweater. It looks completely normal in the front, and it's just like all cut out of the back, because she's got to have the coat on to get her some aerating. Like,
that's so interesting.
You know, stuff like, these are all the stuff that nobody knows about, you know. Yeah. And she would walk around. She would wear these biker shorts underneath, and she'd take her skirt off, and she'd be walking around in the tall boots and the biker shorts and the sweater with the whole. It was hilarious, you know what I mean? So, but she has the tank top underneath for the whole birthing scene and everything. So she does have the elements, but it was just like, you know, it's sort of laughing. She goes, I know, I told you I really wanted the cashmere because it was cold, but now it's super hot. I'm like, okay. So it's always working those little bits and bobs out to try to, you know, obviously as a costume designer, I have to keep the practical side of how can I make sure that the cast are comfortable and taken care of that way. That does fall on me, and you can't really kill them with heat, right? So
try not to actually kill them. And she had the belly too, so that does seem very uncomfortable.
She was wearing, we built her we did build her belly was foam, and the way we constructed it, we made it so it's more like almost like just a tube top for your center, so it was easy on, easy off. She didn't have to worry about any strapping in her crotch area, her bathroom and all that, because you guys are, I'm sure, very well aware, when I first met Yvonne, she had just had a baby 6 or 8 months prior. Like, it was crazy.
That's crazy.
That's so
crazy.
So that was a big challenge, is that working with Yvonne, we had to keep modifying a lot of her stuff, because she was breastfeeding a lot. She was losing a lot of baby weight really quickly, but we had to make sure that we still kept as same as we could. We did create 3 bellies for her on the show this season. So she had the first belly, what she's wearing at the funeral, where she's 7 months, and then we built a bigger one where she's even more pronounced, more pregnant, which we see when she's at the Wheelers, right up to giving birth. And then it was really important. Yvonne and I had talked about this, and I love that she really wanted to do this. It was really important, you know, always and often, I shouldn't say always, but often in film and
we know what you're saying. We noticed.
Yeah, you see a person have a baby and then they're perfectly back to normal. And so we made a soft belly for her. So she's wearing it like you see when we, you know, when she's in detention center, which, you know, we custom built the yellow jumpsuits for that. And we introduced
Kate and I actually talked about that the other day. We
really liked that you did not slim her down immediately to regular Yvonne.
Just not real. And having dealt with her firsthand so soon after pregnancy, she's like, this is what it looks like, Leslie. This is like, you know, she's very honest and real. And I love her. And one thing that is so amazing, I mean, I could sit here and go on and on about Yvonne and how much I love her and all the cast, but it's really, they make it very easy to talk about that stuff. But she was very wanted things like that to be real and be, you know, and as a woman, as an actress, you know, as a storyteller herself. And so we really wanted to make sure that we conveyed that. You know, we talked about what we did for it, and we were a little worried. We're like, does this translate and read? We hope it did. You know, we weren't looking to make it look like she's like literally just gave birth that second. Like we kept the other belly on for that stuff, but there's a passage of time, right? We have to always remember there's a passage of time in these things. And so we're hoping that it just looked like she wasn't perfect, and that we could, you know, show that a little bit.
That's really cool of Yvonne to want to be realistic about that, rather than, you know, I don't think everybody would want to do that.
No, I don't think so. You know, having done that before in my career as well. And so that was having somebody that was very game to do that is also really important, you know, and that was why it worked out so great. And when we see her, you know, in the hospital afterwards and then in the jumpsuit and she wears it for the rest of the only time Yvonne doesn't have, there's 2 flashbacks and she doesn't have, it's the only time we see her with no anything.
Wow, she's amazing. You're all amazing. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm sorry for taking so much time.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for taking so much time.
I just want to say thank you so much for including me in this. I think what you guys do is pretty fun and amazing. You guys work so hard and you guys have so many great questions and eagle eye stuff. And so, you know, such big fans of the show and how you promote and tag and like, and it's really great. I'm so glad you guys have such a really amazing community that follows, and I'm just really honored and so thankful that you wanted to have me. So thank you so much. I've really thoroughly enjoyed this.
You're gonna ruin my mascara. That was so nice. Thank you. We were psyched when you said yes, so I'm really glad that we got to do this. And again, that you stayed so long because we could ask questions forever. And look forward to maybe doing this again next year.
Please, it's fun. You know, the small things that I get to do on my side, you know, are so great and fun and cool and interesting on a certain level, but you don't often get to really delve into it. So this has just been, all the questions were so amazing.
You've let everything out.
And I really have. I love sharing that. I know people do like to hear this stuff, but it's always hard to get it across sometimes. So I thank you for being that vessel for me to share what I do.
This show is all about vessels, you know?
Yeah.
We are happy to be your vessel. All right. Well, that's a wrap on this amazing episode. Thank you again. And we hope to have you back next year. Have a great day.
You guys have a blessed day and
praise me.
May the Lord open.
Thanks again. I really appreciate it, truly.
Okay, come back next week on Wednesday for our interview with Genevieve Angelson, who plays Mrs. Wheeler, of course, and Friday for our 100th episode with Bruce Miller. Bye. Yay.